Every Saturday morning at 9, you get information to prepare you with retirement solutions for the journey ahead. It's Smart Money Ascent with Clayton Alexander of Teton Wealth Group.
How do we solve that number one fear or that number one concern? Make sure you never run out of money.
And Teton Wealth Group's Ethan Miller.
Then when you leave Teton, when you leave our offices, you're going to have a plan that you're both excited about.
It's where your retirement questions are answered. Smart Money Ascent, Saturday mornings at 9 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Attention homeowners, you may have noticed the ground shift after your foundation has been poured, causing your house to sink or settle. Protect your investment from issues before they happen. Polylift Concrete Raising and Piering will stabilize, lift, and eliminate further settling by using Magnum Piering products to save you big money down the road. Polylift Concrete Raising and Piering are the foundation lifting experts. Visit poly-lift.com to schedule your free assessment or call or text 435-999-9309. Polylift is locally owned and operated.
Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
The following is a paid program of commercial time on KVNU. The information, offers, and claims are solely those of the sponsor and not the opinions of this station, its affiliates, management, or employees. It's time for the Garden Guide with your host, Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden.
New research suggests that people are more likely to eat vegetables if they have a tempting name.
What'd life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes.
From gardening to landscaping.
Today we are going to try and create garden eyebrows. Kind of like the flowers are sprouting directly from your hair. That makes sense.
Go! Phone lines are open at 753-KVNU or 800-369-KVNU.
Kind of like eating vegetables.
It's the Garden Guide, now on KVNU 610 AM and 102 FM.
And we welcome you to the show on this Saturday morning where some of us drying out this morning, even some of us cleaning up as we were watching the storm come in yesterday. It did down a few power lines and some trees. So, you just never know what Mother Nature is going to throw at us next. We've had so many days of just hot temperatures, and then last night we get the rain.
Yeah.
And for Aggie fans, it came at absolutely the worst time.
The start of the game.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
It came down like crazy.
Over an hour and a half, everybody's just waiting. So finally they get the game started up there. The high schools were kind of in the same boat.
Yeah.
They got delayed for almost about 90 minutes too.
For lightning, for the lightning. Yeah.
So quite a storm that came in. Now, I was just mentioning off air, Mark, that we only had 0.08 of an inch here at the studio, but other areas around the valley had to get a lot more than that.
Yeah, it seemed like at my house we were probably closer to 3/10.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. As I didn't look this morning at our rain gauge. We've got a fairly accurate rain gauge at home, but I'm thinking there was still a good-sized puddle on my deck. So
yeah, and even as I pulled out of the driveway this morning, there was still, you could tell that we had gotten a little bit of moisture overnight. So.
But remember last year we had the big storm in September that blew trees down like crazy. So it was like, that was what, the 7th? I think that was the 7th of September. So like pretty close. You know? Yeah, pretty close time.
Remember the Hiram Cemetery, Logan Cemetery, some of those gigantic trees.
Blew a lot of trees over. So, this is the time of year for that kind of extreme weather, which is I would say normal.
Yeah. As normal as it is.
It's not normal, but, it's like it is normal for us to get, these big thunder showers and some cooler temperatures and some winds. And, we're starting to see that transition. But, garden's just producing like crazy. So it's also a great time of year where we're just going out and harvesting stuff every single day. And it's like, some days I don't even know what to do with it. There's so much. So much.
There's a pile in our kitchen on our countertop of squash.
Yeah.
And everyone that comes by, hey, you want a yellow squash?
Have a squash. There you go. Yeah. Well, see, on the show last week, we talked about harvesting onions. And so I went out this week and pulled the onions up and turned them upside down. And I think it was Thursday. And usually I'll give them a day or two to dry, and then they got rained on last night. So it's like, all right, so we'll let them dry a little bit. Yeah, we'll let them dry a little bit more. So, pretty moist this morning on those poor onions. So.
We were talking with a neighbor of ours because, it is the harvest season, and we were having a little picnic over at their home the other night, and And it was the time of the year for them to harvest their beehives.
Yes.
And it's something I know Anderson Seed and Garden has gotten involved in.
So I've got what's called a bee escape box or a board, and what you do is you put it in between your hives, like your deep hives, your boxes, and you put it between those and your honey supers, which are on top. And then during the day and even at night, the bees will move down into the hive, and then they can't get back up through. So it's kind of like a little maze that they have to navigate. So they can find their way out, but they can't get back in. Yeah. And so it's a great way to separate the bees from the honey that you're going to be extracting. And it usually takes 24 to 48 hours. You want to leave that escape board on there. And there's always a few bees left in there, but I'll usually take the leaf blower and just kind of blow them out. And that seems to work really, really very nicely. So if you've got couple thousand bees up in the honey supers, you can exclude those from the honey and get them to go back down into the brood boxes where all the babies are. So
that would be really effective, because last year was the first time I'd ever harvested a honey hive before. Yeah. And we did not have something like that. And we ended up, we had bees all over
everywhere,
us, and even with smokers. And those things, they will find any possible way that they can infiltrate your clothing to sting you. And
when they are losing their honey, they get a little possessive, so they get a little crazy. And this way you can do it even without a smoker. So basically you just lift the supers off and then put this escape board down right on top of the brood boxes, and then put the supers back on there. And then it takes about 24 to 48 hours, and they'll go down. I mean, because they're going out to pick up more pollen, and so the worker bees are moving around, and then they realize they can't get back up into the other box. So there's bees coming out, but then you'll get more getting back up in there. And then it works great to use just a leaf blower. So once you get that super off and you look in there and there's 25 bees left in the box still, you can just get a standard leaf blower, and you don't want it at like full blast, but you can just pretty much blow those remaining bees just right out of the box without hurting them.
So anyone that hasn't harvested their hives yet, it's called the bee escape?
It's a bee escape board.
The escape board.
It's an escape
Something
board.
you may want to look at over at Anderson Seed.
My brother actually makes them. And so he made one for me, made one for himself. He doesn't make a lot of them. I mean, but it's a little complicated. But you can buy them online. So so you can buy them online, and they work amazingly well. You can add a little bit of bee repellent in there as well too, to get them to move out of the box a little bit faster. But sometimes the repellents, I think, drive a few too many bees out. So They don't like it as much. So.
Well, it is definitely the time for harvesting. It's definitely the time for prepping gardens and flower beds for colder temperatures that are going to be coming.
We've got definitely some cooler temperatures, and I've actually had quite a few phone calls this week about people wanting to move their strawberries. Like their strawberries have gotten overcrowded and have like filled up their raised beds, and so they're ready to do something. So, the next couple of weeks, this is a great time to start digging up some of your perennial berries, strawberries for sure. Raspberries, if you've got everbearing, they're going to be producing like crazy. But June bearing, this is a great rule of thumb, and we've talked about it on the show before. But you don't want to move your raspberries and some of your other small fruits in a month that doesn't have an R in it. And so it really kind of limits your time of when you can move things around to very early spring and to really late fall, because you've got March that has an R in it, and you've got April that has an R in it, but May doesn't. June, July, August, they don't. So you don't want to do it in the middle of summer when it's really hot. But then you get to September, October, November, they all have R's in them. And so, a month that has an R in it is the best time to move your raspberries, but it's also a really good time to do strawberries as well too. So this month, if you're done picking and your strawberries are done for the season, this is a great time to dig those up. And pretty much you want to just take the newest runners, the newest offshoots that have just come off the plants, especially off the strawberries, and save those. Just get rid of the rest of the strawberries. You can spray them and kill them down, or you can just like till them up and just till them in, and then put some nice soil building conditioner, some compost, some fertilizer, rejuvenate that soil, and then plant the raspberries or the strawberries or whatever it is you're transplanting right back into that area. And you can do it with perennial flowers as well too. You got a lot of perennials that are done blooming for the season, and September and October, prime time for digging those up, separating them, and then replanting them back in the areas. Maybe give some to your neighbors and give some to the people down the street.
That's one of the things that we've looked at doing. We've got a raspberry bed, but just over the years, it's just started to. Oh,
they get overcrowded. Yeah, they get really overcrowded. So with strawberries, all it takes is about 4 or 5 years, and they've just filled that whole area in. Even if you put one plant every 18 inches, they'll just fill in really fast. And the raspberries will do the same thing. And so, it's usually about every 3 to 5 years is when we recommend that you want to kind of dig those up and rejuvenate those beds. And it's a great time to really add some nice compost, some good organic matter, some fertilizer, maybe some micronutrients back into those areas where you're growing. And you'll see a big difference on the plants the next year. You'll see much better production. They kind of utilize all that nutrient. They use up all the fertilizer, the natural fertilizer that's there in the soil. They'll use it all up until there's really nothing left after a couple of years. So this is a time of year I like to feed the fruit trees as well too. So about 10 days ago, threw some fertilizer, some really slow release, long-lasting fertilizer on all of our fruit trees, and then watered them, and that'll feed them for the next 6 months. So this is a 6 to 8 month slow-release fertilizer that we threw on there with lots of minerals and micronutrients as well too. So that should work out. That should work out really well with a application of fertilizer for your fruit trees, for your raspberries, for your strawberries this time of year. Should be excellent, but make sure you use a slow release. We don't want one that's going to just make them grow like crazy. We want them,
especially as we're going into winter.
We want them going dormant, but you also want to get some nutrient out there because, this week, went out there and picked some of my peaches. They were starting to fall off the trees, and a couple of my trees, the peaches are really small, and it has a lot to do with the heat, and the drought conditions we had this year. But we harvested some of them, and they just didn't have much flavor to them at all, just not much flavor. And then a new tree that I planted last year had peaches on it, and it's called Blazing Star. It's a very, very hardy peach, and we went and harvested those, and they were amazing. We were just like, oh my gosh, these are like the best.
Really?
No, they were.
And it's the newest tree.
They were so good, yeah. But that's one that I've been fertilizing more consistently because it's a newer tree, and the older tree, it hadn't. So, between the drought conditions and the less water and the less fertilizer, not great flavor on one peach, and then the other peach went like crazy. Then I've got a nectarine that's been struggling, so I've been fertilizing it a little bit more, giving a little bit more attention, and it does have quite small nectarines on it, but they were to die for. They were just like outstanding. Wow. They were outstanding. But a couple of the other peach trees, just not much flavor, and they're usually really flavorful. So I decided it's time to feed everybody and get them rolling again. So.
Equal fertilization for everybody. It doesn't matter how old or sure the old tree was like, hey, I'll show you.
Yes, exactly. Here's lots of fruit, but don't expect to enjoy it. Yeah. And they were falling off the tree too, so it was like prime time for picking. So it's not like I picked them early. They just didn't have a lot of flavor. And I've heard that from a lot of other gardeners as well too. It's like they'll come in and say, hey, my cantaloupes are coming on, but they don't have a whole lot of flavor to them. And I think it's a combination of a lot of different factors this year. So it's not just the drought, it's not just the heat, but a little bit of nutrition as well too.
Yeah, and a combination of everything put together just was something that was difficult for a lot of fruit trees. We saw the same thing. Our peaches were much smaller, better tasting.
Yeah,
really good.
Yeah, good.
Apples the same way, smaller, and so. Yeah. Well, we have a special guest who's joining us on the line.
Yes.
Richard Rigby from the Mosquito Abatement District, because not only is it harvest season, but wow, it is mosquito season, Richard.
For sure.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Gordon Anderson.
How are you?
I'm good.
Great.
Good. Gordon Anderson woke me up and said I needed to call you guys, so I guess I'm calling you.
He was in the store this week, and we were talking about it, and he's like, we're getting carried away by mosquitoes out here in Newton Clarkston area. And I'm just like, boy, it's been kind of a quiet mosquito season so far. But I guess with all that moisture we received in August, they have made a late appearance this year. So,
well, what we think is there's out in the Barrens, which is between Trenton, which is between Amalga and Newton and Trenton, in that area, there's a duck club out there, and they're flood irrigating right now to get the ponds filled up for duck hunting season. And the type of mosquito that's flying right now is it's an Aedes species that is that's called Aedes dorsalis, and they're a floodwater species that lay an egg, a single egg, and they lay that egg in soft mud, and then those eggs can stay dormant for 7 to 10 years.
Ooh.
And so them flooding that has hit those eggs. I don't think it's been that long since those eggs but those eggs have been hit, and then as dry as it is, I got this idea. I don't have anecdotal evidence, but I got this idea from a hydrologist when those rains came in August, that it's so dry out there right now that the ground is not soaking the water in as quickly, and so it's sitting there on top of the soil for longer periods, and then we get this hot weather, and they can go from an egg to an adult in 5 to 7 days. And so we went out and treated it the end of August, that area, but there's so much water that came in all of a sudden that there's so much area that those eggs have hatched. And they're a day biter, meaning that they like they'll sit in the vegetation. And then as those who are in, so not only Newton and Clarkston, but Trenton, Amalga, Smithfield, a little bit of Richmond have called us continuously this last week. And what they'll do is they'll just sit there and wait for somebody to walk by that's a blood meal, and then they just come up and swarm you. And that's what's creating chaos. So it's been the perfect storm this last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
In this area because of the warm weather, the type of mosquito it is.
Right. So interesting because you say they're more of a daytime, feeder.
Yep. And so when we go out and fog at night, it helps a little bit, but it doesn't do as good a job as those mosquitoes that fly from dusk to dawn, because they're just not up. They just stay in that vegetation.
Right.
I sprayed Newton on Thursday night, and that next day I walked out in my garden, and they were still there. And because of I had the truck, I was able to back up to the garden and just let that fog settle up over the garden. But the next morning it was still. I walked out there and still had them carried away.
And we have had some cases of West Nile in the state as well too.
We have the one silver lining with these mosquitoes, this Aedes species.
They don't carry it.
Does not carry the West Nile virus. There's a species called the Culex pipian and the Culex tarsalis, and even there's another Culex, but it's the Culex species that carries the West Nile virus. And these Aedes dorsalis, any Aedes species, will not carry the West Nile virus. Now, the Aedes species, like the Aedes aegypti, is what carries the Zika virus, but luckily we don't have those up here in Cache Valley. They're more of a southern and tropical type of mosquito. But, yeah, we've had our traps in Benson, Lewiston, and Newton all test positive for the West Nile this year, which is actually, it was 2 weeks earlier than normal, and through the state too. The West Nile virus has been rather, I don't know if you've seen that, Will might have seen the release by the state health department about the West Nile virus and how rampant it is this year.
Yeah, throughout the state.
So people need to get out there and use repellents when they're outside. And
correct.
It's good that you're out there doing the job to try and knock them down for us.
Well, we're trying. The other thing, we're trying to get people to recognize, I know it's warm and it's miserable, but wearing those long sleeve and long pants. So I teach school, and I'm in Smithfield as well. And the kids will come in, and they're just covered in mosquito bites, and they're wearing shorts, and they want me to take care of it. But I'm like, Bud, you gotta be wearing some long pants.
Got to cover
I
up.
can't help you much.
Yeah, got to cover
Right?
up. Got to cover up. And there's some really great repellents out there too. We've been bringing in a line that doesn't have DEET in it, and we took it up to the Sawtooths backpacking with us, and it was amazing. It really did a great job, and it smells good too. It smells like oranges, but yeah, it's got
what
picaridin.
Is that?
I think it's got picaridin in it.
Okay.
Yeah,
picaridin. That's one of the things we tell people to use.
Yeah, the picaridin's amazing. It really does a great job. Lasts about 12 hours, and it smells good, and you don't have that feel like you've got like you do when you use the DEET. So yeah, it's been a really.
Sarah actually came into your store and got some. So
yeah,
for us too.
It's a really great product. And then we've had amazing results using natural cedar oil in the yards, and the oil comes either in a granule or in a liquid format, and boy, it just drives them away. It really does a great job. Again, lasts a couple weeks. You get 2, sometimes even 3 weeks out of it. So.
It does. The other thing that I know that you guys, with your pest control part of your business, is doing barrier sprays.
Yes.
Barrier sprays does a damn good job. And I'm not, we can get that as a mosquito abatement, but that's not one of our arsenal things just because of cost and time, and we just don't have the
resources to do
that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I've been telling people that they can do. So hopefully we're getting you a little business that way too.
Yep, there we go. And we use permethrin, and the permethrin kills on contact, but it also has some natural repellent activity to it as well too. So safe to use around pets and kids, and very effective on the mosquitoes and a lot of other insects. But it's one of those things that can really help keep them from just invading your yard right off the bat. So.
Yeah, that's actually what when we fog, we is a permethrin as well. So same thing.
Yeah. So great, Richard. Thank you so much for calling this morning. I appreciate you taking the time to share some expertise with us. So
I don't know about much expertise, but I enjoy teaching fourth grade and talking about mosquitoes. I can do those things.
Hey, that works great. Hey, you have a wonderful weekend. Okay. Thanks for calling in this morning.
You too.
All right. Take care.
You. Yep. Take care. Bye.
All right.
That clears up the phone lines. We do have a couple other lines that are open and a couple other callers holding. Phone lines are 753-5868 and 1-800-369-5868. We still have time. We can get Vicki on the line here from Smithfield with a question about strawberries. Vicki?
Good morning, Vicki.
Hi. Good morning. Hey, I heard you were talking about raspberry and strawberries, transplanting them.
Yes.
I transplanted some strawberries in July, August. Are they not going to work?
It's just hotter and a little bit more difficult for them to get established. But you can do them in different months. And so the our rule really applies to raspberries because they don't transplant well in May, June, July, August, but once the temperatures start to cool down, they do much better. Strawberries are a little bit more forgiving, and so you should be fine with the strawberries. They're different root system, different structure on the plants. They will probably do just fine for you.
Okay, I was wondering if I got mostly mothers, do I need to go and get a bunch of babies?
You know what? Since you've just recently transplanted them, they should do just fine. It's those newer plants that will produce probably a little bit better for you. But as you get those older plants established, they'll send out runners, and they'll start to spread. So the key would be to right now hit them with a little root stimulator to really get them established before winter sets in. Maybe a mild slow release fertilizer, something that's going to feed them throughout the winter time, something high in micronutrients. I like to use humate on a lot of my strawberries and some of those other ground covers because it's got lots of minerals and micronutrients in there as well too. So they would love that as well as the fertilizer, and it should help them so that they're producing like crazy for you next year.
Okay. If my strawberries were kind of bitter and the patch I got these out of were real sweet and good, that doesn't have to do anything with my soil, does it, that they went bitter?
Sometimes it can. The soil can affect the flavor a little bit. So there are some fertilizers that you can use that will increase the sweetness of the fruit, and so we have some of those as well too. But in many cases, it's sometimes a micronutrient deficiency. So using a slow release fertilizer with a lot of micronutrients in it can really help with that as well too. But we've planted, like, we've grown tomato plants from like the same seed source and planted them in 3 or 4 different locations. And even though it's the exact same variety, they will have a little bit different flavor just depending on the type of soil that you've got. So, so the soil can definitely affect.
If I get that soil reconditioner you guys have and then just put some humate on them, they should be good.
That should be wonderful. Okay. Yeah, should be amazing.
Okay. All right. Okay, I appreciate it.
You are so welcome. Good luck with your strawberries, Vicki.
Okay, have a good day.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
All right. We are... Do you want to I was going to say,
heading into the bottom of the hour, but we still have time to take more calls. Christine is holding on the line, so we'll get to her call coming up in just a few minutes as we talk more. Seems like mosquitoes, strawberries, raspberries have been the main topic, but we can take more calls coming up.
Wasps have been out of control, so we should probably talk wasps and spiders. They're really getting crazy. And then a lot of people are starting to rejuvenate their lawns. With this cooler weather and some rain now, great time to rejuvenate lawns. Think about controlling weeds, fertilize. Right after Labor Day, we like to put a little fertilizer on, so good time to talk about that as well too.
So if you have a question, call in 753-5868, 1-800-369-5868 for the KVNU Garden Guide with Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden. And the news is next. I'm Will Feelright with your KVNU News update here at the bottom of the hour. It's brought to you by the Duck Hunter. The identity of a 35-year-old Newton man killed in a farm accident Thursday has been released. Morel Munson died after being crushed under a swather that he and a friend were trying to repair. Munson's family issued a statement on Friday that read in part, quote, "Morel loved his family, God, and country. He beamed what he loved every single day. He was a family man, and his children and wife were his number one priority. He loved farming every single day, and he died doing what he truly loved." Munson leaves behind a wife and 3 young children, 2 boys and 1 girl. His extended family have set up a donation account to help with any funeral costs and other expenses. Contributions can be made at any Wells Fargo bank to the Morel Munson Memorial Fund. Munson's family have asked for privacy at this time. The schedule of funeral services will be finalized in the next few days. In other news, President Joe Biden will be in Boise, Idaho on Monday to visit the National Interagency Fire Center. Biden's trip to the western U.S. will also include a stop in Sacramento, California to survey wildfire damage there. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said on Thursday that the president wants to highlight how wildfire season now lasts all year and that severe weather affects 1 in 3 Americans. Scientists say that climate change has made the American West much warmer and drier in the past 30 years and will continue to make weather more extreme and wildfires more frequent and destructive. Well, looking at some cooler temperatures through this weekend is daytime temps are going to stay right around the low 80s with overnight temperatures right around the low 50s heading into the next week when it doesn't look like it's really going to warm up much. As Monday and Tuesday, temperatures around the high 70s. Will Feelright for KVNU News.
From ABC Sports, I'm Todd. It took 5 sets, but Novak Djokovic eventually eliminated Alexander Zverev in Friday's semifinal match at the U.S. Open in New York. Joker is now 1 win away from completing a calendar year Grand Slam.
There's only 1 match left, exactly. All in. Okay. Let's do it. I'm gonna put my heart and my soul and my body and my head into that one. I'm going to treat the next match like it is the last match of my career.
Djokovic will compete for his 21st Grand Slam title against second-ranked Daniel Medvedev on Sunday. The fading Yankees continue to slide after the Mets slammed their city rivals 10-3 Friday. The Yanks have now lost 7 straight, but they still maintain a half-game lead over Toronto for the AL's second wildcard slot. This is ABC Sports.
It's youth hockey time for boys and girls ages 4 to 14. The Cache Valley Youth Hockey League wants you to try hockey for 2 weeks, totally free.
That's right. First-time skaters can try hockey for free for 2 weeks.
All equipment is included. Coaches will walk you through everything needed. If you are interested in youth hockey, sign-ups are going on now. To learn more about the 2-week free youth hockey trial, go to cachehockey.com. That's cachehockey.com. Cache Valley Youth Hockey. Join today.
Did you know that insurance companies compensate homeowners for storm damage to their roofs? This is David with Roof Rescue. It's hard to see the extent of roof damage from the ground. Rather than evaluate the roof yourself, schedule a free consultation with a roof rescue specialist. We'll take the time to assess, explain, and work out financial obligations with your insurance. Financing available with approved credit. Google Roof Rescue or visit roofrescueusa.com. Roof Rescue, providing watertight peace of mind.
The Garden Guide with Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Welcome back to the show. 8:36 now on this, kind of a cloudy Saturday. We could still see a few raindrops from Mother Nature after yesterday's storm.
We might get some more rain, so
we could definitely use it.
More rain. Yeah, we'll take it.
Now,
right.
phone lines are open, and we are talking all things gardening, mosquitoes. We've even talked a little bit about some of those onions that maybe got drenched, as Mark was talking about yesterday. Yeah. And we need to talk about what's going on at the store. So we'll get to all of that. First, though, we have Christine, who's been holding on the line through the break in Smithfield. Christine, welcome to the Garden Guide.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I was teasing the guy that answered. I said, I feel like that the mosquitoes used me for their supper a couple nights ago.
For a pincushion, huh?
Yeah, or something. Oh, it's been bad. So I'm coming in the store to get some stuff, and I have some cedar oil outside. So I'm going to use it.
Very good.
So my question is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead, Christine.
My question, and by the way, Smithfield is getting rain.
Oh, very nice.
So I planted some strawberries in a whiskey barrel, and I'm concerned that they won't winter over, that I'll lose them. So what would you suggest?
Strawberries are pretty resilient, and they actually do pretty well in a whiskey barrel. And so, make sure and continue to treat them as you would normally for the next month or so. And then when it gets time for winter to really set in, you're going to want to insulate them just a little bit. So you can mulch them with straw. That's where the name comes from, is you can put it, 3 or 4 inch layer of straw in there and cover those up and kind of protect them. And then you could put bales of straw around the whiskey barrel to keep it from freezing solid. So that's what happens is when you've got containers, the soil will freeze solid in there and it can damage the plants that are inside the container. But the whiskey barrels are big enough that in most cases the plants will do okay in there, especially if you mulch them nice and heavy. So I think you should be all right.
Put straw on the top of them,
yeah.
And then I have a whole bunch of fruit trees, and I usually just throw all my leaves in my flower bed. So
yeah.
Could I do that with them?
You could do the leaves. It's a little bit hard to clean up in the springtime, so the straw's a little coarser, so it's a little bit easier to gather up than the leaves. Leaves kind of get compacted down and can kind of suffocate them a little bit. And so the straw would be great. Any type of kind of shredded bark type material would be very good as well too. We just need to insulate those berry plants so that they won't freeze and get too cold in the wintertime.
So put something around them and then on top
of them.
So I could put the leaves around and then...
You got it.
I'll have to go find some straw,
Yeah. Straw, or, you could do soil building conditioner. I mean, there's a lot of different products you can use as soil pep, and then that should help protect those through the winter time.
Okay. So I just come into the store when it first freezes. And then I have some apples. When is a good time to bring in one to taste? You can taste to see if it's ripe.
The best way to find out if your apples are ripe is to cut them open and look at the seeds on the inside. So, of course, you should have the nice mature color on the exterior, but when you cut them open, if the seeds inside are a dark brown color, then they're very close to being ripe if they're not ripe already. If you cut them open and they're kind of a light brown and look immature, then it's not ready yet. And so if it's a nice mature flavor to it, in many cases I can identify what kind of apple it is, just by the exterior and the texture and the taste. So, yeah.
Well, I might bring you one in because I don't know if it's a Jonathan or a Macintosh.
Yeah.
Just to make sure.
The Macintosh might be getting pretty close. The Jonathan are a little bit later, depending on which variety you've got. But
and then I have Delicious.
Yeah, and the Delicious are probably at least a month off. They're probably not ready yet.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Do they need a good freeze on them?
Usually a light frost.
Bring in the sugar.
Yeah, a little light frost is okay, but sometimes they're ready before that, so you can pick them before it freezes. We just don't want to leave them out there and have it freeze hard because then it'll damage your fruit. So, yeah, we don't want a hard frost. All right. And then glad the suggestions for the mosquitoes will be helpful for you. So. Yeah, that was nice of Richard Rigby of the Mosquito Abatement District to call in and share that with us. So he's kind of a nice. Local expert. So, but okay, Christine, thanks so much for calling.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Have a great day.
You too. We'll see you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Well, you mentioned we did have some good things going on at Anderson's.
Yes.
And we forgot in the first half to talk about it, but there's some great specials going on right now. Mums came in, pansies came in, asters. So we got a great selection of fall blooming plants. If you want to rejuvenate some flower beds or some planters with some pansies, that would look great. Our perennials are on sale. They're buy one, get one free. And we have extended our cash clearance sale where we're doing 60% off if you pay with cash now. So, 50% if you pay with check or a credit card, extra 10% off. So you can get 60% off if you pay with cash. So cash sale continues. You get that extra discount on top of, the discounts you can get already. So 50% off with a debit card or a check or a credit card, and extra 10%. 60% off if you pay with cash.
On the existing trees and
shrubs. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's some good shrubs left. There's a few really good trees left as well too, and we're starting to clear things out so we can get ready for winter.
Yeah. I was going to say, before we know it, we're going to be talking about the Christmas open house.
It won't be long. That's
well,
right.
Before we get to that, and before we start talking Christmas, a few other callers want to talk still about gardening. So Lori is on the line from College Ward. Lori, welcome to the show.
Thanks. My question is in regards to apples, too. I have a Jonagold apple tree, and the apples keep falling out of the tree, so I'm wondering if it's ready. I don't know what to do about that, but do you have to wait for a frost? A little light frost, or
you don't have to wait for a frost. If it's a Jonagold, it's probably still not quite ripe, but best way to find out is taste them. The tree could be dropping a few fruit just because of the wind that we've had. If the fruit gets a little bit damaged, or if there's a large cluster together, sometimes the tree will just naturally shed a little bit of fruit right now before they're even ripe. So that could be a possibility as well too. But yeah, if you want to bring a sample in, I would be glad to taste it, and we'll see if it's ripe and ready to go. So I know. I love it when people bring in samples and I have like snacks all day long. It's like, Ron Maloof brought in the best nectarine I've ever had, and he wanted me to identify it for him. And it was a gorgeous white nectarine, and I called him back. He left like 2 on my desk. I called him back. I said, I cannot tell which kind this is. You're going to have to bring me 2 more. So that was so good. It was like amazing. things. So, yes, bring me samples. Yeah, bring me samples. That's good.
Okay.
All right.
My other question is, it's okay to trim lilacs and forsythia and all that right now, isn't it?
You know what? You want to do it after they're done blooming. It might be a little bit too late. So those really early bloomers, if you prune them too late in the fall, you'll cut all your flowers off for next year. So forsythia, I think, go in and kind of thin them out if you need to do a little bit of selective pruning if they're like too thick. But don't do too much pruning because you won't have any flowers next spring.
Okay. All righty. Well,
all right.
That's all my questions.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Thanks for calling this morning, Lori.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good one.
And looking out to the south of us, looks like
it's raining right now. Yeah, it's raining right now. We'll take it.
Yeah, looking like we could see some more of this on and
the
off
poor
today.
riders on Latoja, I guess.
Well, let's hope by now they're probably up towards Preston, so maybe they're going to get away from it. Of course, maybe they're riding right into it. Over the years, Latoja has had some really nasty storms. Some of the snowstorms, what was it, about 10 years ago?
Yeah. Not fun.
Not good. So, let's see. Phone lines are open, 753-5868, 1-800-369-5868. Still 15 minutes and plenty of time to take more calls. We have Gordon, who is hanging on the line. And, Gordon, welcome to the show on this Saturday morning.
Good morning, guys. How we doing?
We're doing great, Gordon. How about you?
I'm good. Hey, I wanted to follow up on Richard's call and report. He had posted in our Newton Facebook page about mosquitoes, and so I didn't have any granules left. I used everything I had earlier in the year, so I went out and dug, and found a little bottle of the cedar oil, and I took that and I sprayed all around out on the south side by where our porch swing is and out and kind of created this little area, and it was miraculous.
Yeah.
You would walk out beyond and you would just walk into this crowd of mosquitoes. And when you would walk back in, it was like, back into the oasis.
Yep, a little oasis, yes.
One or two floating around. And so I did come in, as you know, this last week and grabbed a bag of granules and put those down all around. And so I feel a little guilty pushing them off to my neighbors' houses. But it's pretty peaceful in my yard right now in terms of mosquitoes.
Well, your neighbors can use
and after I sprayed down the cedar oil, that next evening we sat out on the porch swing with the grandkids for an hour or two, and I got one bite.
Yeah,
and not hardly anything. So
can't beat it.
It's miraculous.
Yep, it really does make a difference. And whether you use the liquid or the granule, it works great, and it lasts for a couple weeks, and it makes your yard smell awesome. That's like the best side effect. It just smells really good. So
the plus of the liquid is that I have some big lilacs and rose bushes kind of all along, and
you can spray those,
and spray down and underneath and up and in, and it smells really nice and it gives you good coverage. It's a little tougher to do that with the granules.
It is. But, yep, it really is. But so the liquid's been super, super effective. I'm glad it is keeping the mosquitoes out of your yard, Gordon.
So are we.
Glad.
And the other thing that I wanted to report on quick is hydratane. Newton Dam didn't get much of a fill this year, and so we were really, really concerned about using our secondary water, and so I put hydratane down early on. And we hardly watered our front lawn during the summer, less than once a week and sometimes once every 2 weeks and then sometimes hardly at all. And it still stayed kind of green all summer long.
Yeah.
And so I'm convinced that's like a miracle cure as well. But
I've had
worth every penny.
Yeah, I've had so many people come in and say the same thing, Gordon. They're just like, "Hey, we were really cut back and we couldn't water, but once a week, once every 10 days, we used the hydratane, and it kept our lawn, relatively green. It wasn't like perfect, but it kept it looking pretty good despite the limited water availability, and and now we got that rainstorm in August, and then everybody came in. They're just like, oh my gosh, my lawn just like
just took off.
Yeah, just came right back. It's like it's amazing. Yeah, and the Hydrotane, 90 days you get like coverage through the whole hot, dry part of the summer. If you put it on the 1st of June, it's wearing off now. But it doesn't matter because we're starting to get rainstorms. We're getting cooler nights. We're getting cooler temperatures. But so many people have come in and said the same thing. They're just like, hey, this just like totally saved my lawn this summer because our water was cut way back. So,
yep. Yeah. I've already got my bag for next year standing by. It's waiting.
Awesome. Believe it or not, I'm ordering for next year, and I've got Hydrotane lined up for next year, liquid and granule. So we'll be good. We're going to get lots of rain lots of snow this year, though. So
we're praying for it.
I'm feeling a heavy snow season. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. So.
We're really hoping.
I have one really quick question. I have a potted fuchsia that I kept through from last year.
Yeah.
And we've, it's doing pretty good. It looks healthy, but it just, and we've fertilized it, but not heavily. It's just not blooming very much. Is there something I can put on it to kind of just kick the blooms out?
Yeah. I would. We kind of had a few hanging baskets at the store that just decided the first part of August to just kind of stop blooming. And I'm sure it's a combination of just like the heat, and we probably missed water in one day, and then I had tobacco budworms in there. And so we hit them with the compost tea like every 3 days for about a week, and then hit them with a high phosphorus, and they just flushed out with flowers and just went crazy. So I would probably recommend the same thing. So I've got the mixture for the compost tea if you need a recipe, Gordon. But compost tea will build your soil back up, so your soil will release the nutrient and the water to the plants and breaks it down, like pre-digests it. And so it's great to hit your baskets or your planters with the compost tea every now and then to increase that natural biology, the good beneficial, biology that should be there in the soil, because it does free that nutrient up. And then when you're fertilizing, it makes your fertilizer much more effective, makes it work a lot better. And so we've got some good weather coming for the next couple of weeks, at least until October. Hopefully we won't have too much frost, and we can enjoy those plants for another month. So let's try and get it blooming again. So about a week's worth of compost tea, like 3 shots, once every 3 days, and then a high phosphorus, like blooming and rooting type fertilizer, and they should go crazy again.
Okay. All right. I'll hang up and let somebody else call in. So
wonderful.
Talking to you.
Yep. Thanks, Gordon. Have a good weekend.
All right, let's go out to Jenny. She's holding on the line from Richmond. Jenny, welcome to the show this Saturday morning.
Good morning. I want to talk about grasshoppers. How soon next year can we put something down to take care of the little vermin?
Great question. And we have had 2 pretty heavy grasshopper seasons in a row, and hopefully it's not a third next year, but you just never know what the weather's going to do. But usually we will recommend when you start to see the little tiny grasshoppers, that's the best time to try and get them under control. So generally it's around the middle part of May when they start showing up. Sometimes it can be a little earlier, sometimes a little bit later, but around the yard there's a lot of different products you can use. At that point, it is not effective to use the Nolobait, the biological insecticide that's only for grasshoppers. So a lot of people want it the 1st of May, and it's just like it's just not going to be effective. A rainstorm like today, it's worthless. It's just not going to do any good. Yeah, it's not going to do any good. And so early on in the season, we will recommend either permethrin or 7 or Bug Blaster from High Yield, and those are all great for knocking down grasshoppers by the thousands when they're small. And we usually recommend a perimeter treatment around your property, strategic locations in your property where they're hanging out. And if you've got a field next door or a vacant lot out back or something, that's where you want to go and try and get them before they move to your yard. And if you can get to the area where they're coming from and really knock them down, you'll see a huge population decrease for the rest of the season. So,
is that a spray or granules or what?
I would do a spray. Yeah, the spray is going to be most effective because with the granules, it's just on the ground, so they have to land on it. Where the spray is going to be on the plants, and if they come in contact with it or they eat the plant with it on there, it'll kill them. And when they are less than an inch in size, most insecticides really do a pretty good job at knocking the grasshoppers down. It's when they get bigger that they're more resilient. They're harder to kill. So.
Now, can you use that on your flowers and just bushes, or is that for weeds?
Absolutely. You can use it on anything. The 7 and the permethrin are safe to use on edibles. I've got a new product coming in next year that's called Sayonara. That's a new generation of insecticide. Very, very effective, but also super, super safe to use on a lot of your edible plants. And so that would be a great option where you'll get a really quick knockdown on the grasshoppers and other insects as well, too, not just grasshoppers. But then it's safe to use around a lot of these edibles as well, too, where you can harvest and use them like the next day after you've sprayed. So.
Wow, that's good news.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So.
Okay, and then we use it in the first 2 or 3 months?
Yeah.
And then after that, it's not effective?
I used a couple repellent applications in my garden this year and really, really cut the grasshopper population down. But they were going nuts out in my orchard. And so I sprayed out in the orchard with the insecticide and kind of a little bit along the borders of the property. But in my garden, I only used the repellent, and I haven't had hardly any problems with the grasshoppers this year. And I started pretty early, end of May. We started with the repellent, and just the one application of the insecticide and the repellent has done an awesome job this summer. I haven't had to spray for bugs once. So
wow,
it's been
that's
good.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's been great.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You are so welcome, Jenny.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And one thing we did this year that you were just mentioning, not only do you need to focus on your garden, but then around the garden. And that's something we did this year, and it has made just such a big difference because we have about a 20-yard strip behind our garden before it heads into the horse pasture.
Yeah.
And we just hit that really hard this year, and we thought, maybe it might make a difference, but it made all the
big difference. Yeah, because they're coming from somewhere else.
Yeah.
In your garden, they don't lay eggs in your garden, and if they do, you till them up, and it makes them so that they're not going to hatch. They're not going to hatch properly. So they're coming from areas where the soil is undisturbed, and it's usually from a field or a vacant lot, or you just never know. So you're better off going into those areas where it's less disturbed, where the soil's less disturbed, and trying to stop them there because they're not really coming from your garden.
Yeah.
They're coming to your garden.
That's where the food is.
Yeah. Especially when their food source dries up and they look around, they go, oh, all these dry weeds and grasses, that doesn't taste very good. Oh, there's Will's place over there. It's
look at those bean plants.
It's green and lush. Yes, I think I'll head that direction.
Yeah. Yep. So make sure you get that perimeter, hit that really good. In fact, we probably hit that perimeter 2 times and then just did the garden once.
Yeah.
And it really made the big difference.
So Todd sent me a message, and he was asking about his tomatoes, and he said he's got kind of rings on the top of the tomato, but he didn't describe what the rings look like. There's a lot of cracks that are happening in the tomatoes, and it can be kind of a ring around the top as well too. And it happens when we get really hot, dry weather like we have had. The skin of the tomatoes is very elastic, and so as the tomatoes grow, they can grow really, really quickly, and the skin will stretch, and they'll be okay. But sometimes they grow so fast, and the combination of the hot, dry weather will cause the skin to crack, and you can get rings around the top of the tomato, or cracks along the top and the sides of the tomatoes as well too. So unfortunately, it's one of those seasons where we've seen a lot of cracked tomatoes. The best way to control that is to make sure and keep your plants moist but not soggy. So you don't want to overwater, but you don't want to let them really dry out a lot in between. And then if you let the plants be a little more lush and have more growth on them, so you've got more leaves, it'll kind of protect the fruit from the sun and that drying effect of the skin, so it cracks. And so a little bit more lush plants will help with that problem. So I've noticed that where my fruit are out towards the exterior, especially on the west and the south side, they have cracked more. But the ones that are on the interior where the plants are really lush and there's a lot of leaves that are protecting them, those fruits have come out and they've been like perfect, like no damage on those whatsoever. A little bit of a shade cloth would really help as well too, because it lets the heat come through. It lets the the light come through, but you don't get that intense heat, and it kind of cools the plants. Yeah, it kind of cools the plants down a little bit through the daytime, and that should help with that as well too.
Okay.
And then Todd also asked about powdery mildew. We have had perfect conditions for mildew this year. So end of July we started getting that monsoonal moisture coming up from the south. And we've had higher humidity, really warm days, very cool nights. And that's like the perfect combination for a lot of powdery mildew. So I've had some squash and some pumpkins where it kind of started to show up, and I was like, I probably should spray, but then I didn't, and now it's like kind of killed a whole section. But the plants are still doing fine. They're doing okay. But, if you're seeing a lot of mildew, it spreads really fast. So you'll probably want to do a preventative application out there and stop it. I've been too busy to mess with it this fall. So, oh well.
30 more seconds. We want to remind everybody the cash sale has been extended.
Yes, cash sale still going. So it's 50% off if you pay with a check or a debit card or credit card. But if you pay with cash, you get that extra 10% off. You can get 60% off our remaining shrubs and trees, fruit trees, evergreens, flowering trees, and some vines as well, too. So it's a great time to come in and do that. Perennials are on sale, too. Mums and pansies and asters. I just got a new shipment in. They look amazing. Got some great fall-looking, some fall plants that look great that you can add to your landscape. And it's Patriot Day.
Yeah.
It's 9/11, so don't forget.
And next week, we'll be talking about all the parties that are going to be going on downtown with the Logan Downtown Marathon.
With the marathon.
We'll see you then.
News Talk KVNU Logan, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.